So in this tutorial, we're going to talk about directives, and specifically, we're going to talk about ngIf and ngFor. Directives are nothing but properties in the DOM that give, or like properties that give the DOM more power, or DOM elements more power. For example, this div element, we can use some directive here, like ngIf, and we can only display this element. So I'm gonna say hello world. So we can only display this hello world if whatever is being passed in here is true, or it evaluates to true. So we could say true, and you will see that hello world is printed. But if we say false, then hello world is no longer printed. So that's something that comes really in handy. And I'm actually going to create another property here. I'm gonna call it is active, and I'm gonna set it to true. And what I want to do is um, I want to pass that in over here instead of true and false. So if this value is either true, if this value is true, then it's going to be printed. But if this value is false, then it's not going to be printed. But as you can see here, it's true, so it should be printed. But if it's false, then it shouldn't be displayed. Right. So uh let's spice things up a bit and add a button, and we'll say make text disappear, and we want to make it a click, and then we want to say is active. So we want to, every time we click, we want to change is active to false. And oh, actually, we want to set it to true by default. And if we go back there, then if we click here on make text disappear, then the text is going to disappear. So that's basically all it does. And yeah, you can use it for a lot of things, really. It really depends on what you plan to achieve in your application. And if you think that it's useful to use an ngIf directive, then yeah, it will be useful. Like I use it really a lot. I really use it a lot. So that's a nice directive. And another directive that I wanted to show you is the ngFor directive. And how you do that is by, let me make an example. Um, Typically, you would use an ngFor directive to display something multiple times. And how you would um, use that in a handy way is you maybe create a list and say you want to display a couple of items here, but you want to do that dynamically, of course. So we'll say maybe apples, and you want to say fruits, and you want to say pears, and maybe you want to say oranges. And instead of displaying them, instead of hard coding these elements, you want to maybe display something that comes from an array over here. So I'm going to say fruits is equal to apples, oops, oranges, pears, and I skipped one. Okay, let me say banana this time, regardless of what I have here. I said fruits. That's embarrassing. Anyway, what I want to do is I want to display those items dynamically from what's in this array. So how I can do that is by using an ngFor. So we'll say ngFor, and we'll say um, let and define the variable that is going to represent each item in the array. So if you know how for each works, then you should be fine. It should be easy to understand. So we'll say let fruit of fruits. So fruits refers to the array the name of the array that we have, the array property that we have in our component, and fruit is going to represent each of those items. So we can use string interpolation to print out the each of the fruits. So we'll say fruit, which is this variable over here. And actually, did I get an unintentional? Fruit does not exist on type app component. Oops, okay, that's a mistake. Instead, we have to use an asterisk over here, and now it works. All right, so we have apples, oranges, pears, and bananas. So this looks at the items that are in the array. We can also print out an array of objects. So we can say shopping items, items. We can have an array that contains objects. We could have um, title. Okay, let me say clothes rather. Clothes or clothing items. And then we could say title. So we can say title, and the title of that item can be men's jacket, and the price. I'm just gonna add the title and the price, and the price can be 200 rands. Oops, sorry, that's a mistake. And we could change this to 250. We could say this one needs 140 rand. And we could say men's jeans. We can say, sorry about that, women's, I don't know, women's, what can I say, t-shirt. And if we go back here, we get an error because it doesn't know what fruits is. It's looking for fruits because we removed fruits, so obviously it's going to complain. So now what we have is clothing items. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna change all that. I'm gonna change this to item of clothing items, and I'm gonna try and print out item, and you see what we'll get. We'll get is object, 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 because those are objects, right? So it doesn't know how to display those objects. So how you can fix that is you want to print out the title and the price, right? So you could say item dot title, or you could say title. Maybe you want to make this bold. Oops. I'm just gonna cut that, put it over here. So you want to say title that, and then you want the price maybe next to it, or let me change it to item rather. It really doesn't matter at this point. So you decide for yourself what looks good. So we'll say item dot price. Just want to show you how this thing works. So as you can see, we get item men's jacket 200, men's jeans 250, women's t-shirt 140. So you might want to display this in like your relevant currency, and yeah, I could say two fixed, two, because you want to put it in two decimal place, and yeah, it'll look like that. Or you could use pipes, but I'm not going to talk about pipes here. I'm going to talk about pipes later on. But yeah, this is how it looks. And yeah, that's your ngFor and your ngIf. And that's all for directives in this tutorial.